This opportunity is for everybody to understand what Alex is all about and really how he got to do what he does so well.
Yeah.
So first question for you, Alex, I suppose, is what's your background? How did you get into this sector?
Well, I suppose it was just by sheer chance. Many years ago when I was at university, I got some great work experience, and from there sort of doors start to open. You get an insight into the estate agency world. Got a great job with Clutton, who are a big name, sort of in the southeast and London, and sort of worked up the rankings, and quite a lot of experience over about 13, 14 years.
You work with some really big companies, haven't you? You must have got a huge amount of experience looking at it from both sides of the fence, I suppose.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, you really have seen sort of all sorts of properties, ranging up to stuff that you sort of see in the press on a national scale. So some stuff that you'll remember, I think, for the rest of your life, dare I say, on some of them.
Wow. So what made you start up on your own then? I mean, you've got a pretty good job, you're working in some pretty big organisations, you've got some real sort of kudos there. What was the reason why you decided to pack it all in and start your own business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I suppose I became disillusioned with the way that estate agency was being run. It was very, very different to when I first started. A lot of businesses nowadays, and especially estate agency, it's all run on targets. It's key performance indicators. It's daily targets, and it's all about how many calls you're doing, how many deals you've got, and it's almost that you've got this sort of big stick mentality from head office. And I just felt that you're almost incentivized, I suppose, not to look in client best interests at times, and it didn't quite sort of fit true with who I am, and I suppose morally didn't quite feel right.
Okay, so when you say from a moral perspective, what do you mean?
Well, as an estate agent nowadays, and a lot of these guys, it's all about, I suppose, the short term. It's all about short term targets, get it in and bill it. So I remember very well that you went to see, say you're selling your property. I'd go to see you, and before I'd even stepped through the door, in the back of my mind, I've just got to think, I've got to get Michael to sign that terms of business. I've got to get his instruction. It may be, conversely, that the best advice for you to maximise the value of a property could be, Michael, you know what? Let's go and get outline planning permission for that big extension. Let's add value by doing that, and then let's put it on the market. You've got to look in client best interests, and now I don't have targets or KPIs or anything like that. It's genuinely looking in your best interests as a homeowner to get the best buy.
It's almost like one of those programs that you see on television, isn't it, where you have an expert. People often call you the Phil Spencer of Harrogate.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that sort of situation where you have somebody like Phil Spencer, he's an expert in property, comes in, looks at the property and gives them an objective perspective. And from that objective perspective, people then start to build trust and understand what you're coming from. From your point of view, why do you think that's going to be beneficial for the client?
A lot of it nowadays is the fact that you've got an expert like myself who's got a lot of years under his belt, and experience is, I think, absolutely key, critical on dealing with, let's face it, your most important asset on this planet.
Yeah, don't they say that it's also the most stressful thing to purchase as well, a house? Isn't divorce just behind that?
I think divorce is just behind it, and I think death probably just behind that. It is still one of the most stressful things in your life, and actually the biggest key to it is actually predicting problems before they've happened and to nip them in the bud, so again you can keep the process very smooth.
It's all about proactivity, I suppose, as opposed to reactivity, isn't it?
It is that, but also it comes down to experience, and it's one of the for me it's the biggest frustration out there. At the end of the day, estate agency isn't licensed. Anyone could start up. You could start up tomorrow your own estate agency and just start going, and as long as you've ticked the right boxes legally, you're absolutely fine. The biggest problem, I have to say, it's a lot of these online guys that sort of buy franchise opportunities. Yes, they are amazing salespeople. They're from car sales, or I used to be insurance sort of thing. Dealing with property is something very specialist and shouldn't just be sort of glibly sort of thrown away. And very often they get caught out because they don't have that foresight and knowledge and experience to see through a problem. And it's very often where, sadly, I have to get involved because the sale's gone completely off kilter, and it's down to someone like me to come in objectively and just get it back on track.
And the other thing, of course, which must be a huge issue, is that it affects the confidence in the individual and in the world of estate agents selling property, that they think that everybody's tied with the same brush.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're an estate agent, politician, or dare I say a traffic warden. I think every sort of sector in this world. You've got a tarnishing of sorts. Estate agents used to be, I think, the most hated role out in the UK. I think that is topped by the bankers and the politicians at the moment. But it is a great pity because there really are some superb estate agents and negotiators and actual team setups, and it's just knowing what to look for with experience behind the scenes to guide a client through those sort of fairly tough times.
Okay, so let's look at it from a slightly different perspective now. Let's look at it from the consumer's perspective. What is the advantage, and what do you do for me? Having decided that I want to sell my property, what exactly is the process that you follow, and what would you do for me?
So if you're looking to sell your property, and as you probably know, I cover Yorkshire and London, as I've intimated already, it's about where you can maximise value. Now, this could be going through planning, it's sorting the cosmetics out, it could be the finer details, but also, as with a lot of these things, it's planning everything behind the scenes. And actually getting the agent out is one of the last things you actually do. So it's sort of making sure you've got the solicitors lined up. It may be that we call on a surveyor to check for the roof, so we've got that absolutely nailed down.
So how do you get paid from the selling perspective? How does that work?
Well, once I've sort of bought in and advised on independently the most appropriate agent, I link in with the agent on a weekly basis. I remain proactive, so I would call said agent once a week on behalf of Michael, who's selling the property, get the latest from them. It takes me 30 seconds to a minute to understand where they're going because I've been there and done it myself. And then I can report back to Michael. 20 minutes, half an hour, Michael, this is what's going on. This is what it all means. Proactively, with my experience, we need to do, I don't know, change the online advert. Agreed? Great. Agent, please can you get on with it? So all of a sudden, you're now speaking weekly with the estate agent. You're being proactive because you've got me on board. The key to it is the appointed agent, who's been instructed independently of me, charges you their standard commission rate in the market. The agent pays me a cut of their commission. So if you are selling a property, you have absolutely nothing to pay me at any point to have me on board. So I suppose it gets into no-brainer type categories, a lot of people say.
So literally the agent will pay you, so the house owner, the homeowner who's selling has got no cost for all of that objective perspective.
No, the cost remains exactly the same. It just means that you've got extra expertise and knowledge and guidance. The agents like it because, in effect, I have, forgive the analogy, packaged up you and the property. We've got the planning, we've got the solicitor, we've got the right marketing strategy lined up. You're ready to go. It's win-win situation. The agent still retains a good proportion of the fee. I get paid a percentage of that. It's win-win, and that's where I can link in with a lot of the solicitors, the private banks. I've done sort of stuff with Google in London as well, because again, it's a very unusual service.
Okay, fantastic. The other week I was out and about and I was speaking to a solicitor. And the solicitor was raving about you and saying how you actually helped one of their clients. How does that one work?
That's very kind. Yeah, no, thanks for mentioning it. This was actually on the buying side of things, and this was actually for a client of theirs who was getting very frustrated. They were in a good position to proceed, but they weren't getting any traction with the agents. They weren't getting tipped off early, and they were very fortunate. They were all cash. There was no mortgage. They were in rented, but they just weren't being taken seriously.
Okay, so just one thing I just wanted to make clear here. So this is the other side of the business.
It is,
which is where you're actually going into the market and purchasing properties for clients.
Correct.
So just rewind a tad and just explain how that part of the business works. So you've got the selling side that you've just talked about, and this is the other side of the business.
It is, and again, very often people, as I've said, get frustrated, or they don't have the time, or very often they don't know what they're doing. It's all well and good that you hear on the TV and in the media, well, this is how to buy a property and this is what to do, but actually putting that through into real terms, if you've never done it before, it's actually incredibly daunting. So again, adding value through there, and I do a lot of relocations. As I said, I cover Yorkshire and London, so people moving between the two, I can effectively hold their hand and guide it through. But again, it's with experience. I am an ex-estate agent at the end of the day, and you know how the system works. You know how to get your client to the very front of the queue. And sometimes, and again, it's a big trend at the moment, it's what's called the off-market sector. And this isn't necessarily with estate agents, or if it is, it's not on the open market, it's not online. Very often you're going direct to the developers that have just finished a new project, or because I've been in the business a long time, I know the homeowner. So if you give me your criteria, we'll go out and search for whatever specification you're after. We negotiate and we secure it on the right terms and see it all the way through. And I act on behalf of you, the purchaser in that instance, and you just pay me a fee for that service.
So this is a service where you're paid a fee, but again, you give a completely objective perspective. And from what you're saying to me then, you actually have access to properties that are probably not on Rightmove or not on other websites that most people would look at when they're trying to buy property.
Probably just over half the purchases that I've done have been completely off market. No one really knows about it, and you are just placing the buyer, my client, with a specific type of property, and it's guiding them through that. It's also then bolting on a lot of connections that I've got. Again, I don't get anything for it, and I always say to everyone up front, but very often someone moves into a property, they buy a property, and I don't know, they want to do the extension, they need the roof sorting, or they want some really nice sort of carpeting to go through. Who do you know? Who do you go to? Who's trustworthy? Well,
that's a whole ballpark on its own. Getting tradesmen in and knowing who you can trust and getting the best price and all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, I've been round the block, as they say, a lot of years. I know a lot of these guys. They are completely trustworthy, and I don't charge for it. They don't charge anymore. But again, it's looking at the bigger picture, which I wasn't always allowed to do in the corporate world. Is that if I can help you as a buyer, and indeed as a seller, if I help you and the general cause, again, it helps you, it helps me. Everyone wins, as I see it. It's not about getting, as a lot of businesses do, sort of backhanders in brown envelopes and all of that. I'm not into that at all, and keep it very simple.
So it's all about really adding value to the client in every respect, whether it's from a purchasing perspective, whether it's from a selling perspective. It's all about adding value.
Yeah, very much so. That's exactly what it's about.
So the other night, reading through the Yorkshire Post, and you've got a column.
Yeah, no, I do. Yorkshire Post property column. I think the next one's out in about 2 weeks' time. And again, that's giving you an insight into my world. It's not sort of selling anything, as you may sometimes read. It's just giving really good advice and expert opinion and experience. That's what it's about as well.
Fantastic. So, in summary, you're buying properties, you're selling properties, you've got 14 years experience. You basically have the majority of your stuff is not the kind of stuff that you would see on Rightmove. It's something that's offline. Yep. So if people are interested in properties that they probably don't even know that are for sale, you're the man to speak to.
Yeah, I'd very much put it like that.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Alex.
Not at all. Thanks very much, Michael.